G'day community, welcome back to Alexi Does. I'm Alexi, also known as Lekdog, and this is my channel where we talk hobby and modelling and painting and all that sort of stuff. Predominantly Middle Earth, as I'm sure you've seen, but there's some other stuff mixed in there. This is the first monthly hobby vlog. We had a few videos go out in January, including the review for 2023, where we went through all of the models I painted last year. This is the first review of this year's models. And by the way, thank you all for the huge response on last week's video, or the video where you helped me choose my next Warhammer army. I still haven't quite decided. A lot of recommendations for 40k. Spoiler, it's not going to be 40k, but I appreciate the comments. I don't know how people found the video, but it made its way out to the real world, which is really, really cool. This video is just going to talk about what I did in January, what the plans are for the remainder of February. We've actually started some models in February, which you're probably going to get a sneak peek of. Really exciting stuff. Should be a really chill video, so chuck it up on your second screen while you're doing something else. If you are watching, hit the like button. I've been told legally I have to ask you that. Also, if you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe. I'll be doing this at least every month, if not more regularly than that. Now we're going to jump over to the hobby table. All right, as we move over to the hobby desk, we're going to start with the last model I painted in 2023. It was this Aragon model, which I believe you have seen if you've watched the other videos. Now, I just want to make sure he's relatively in focus there. He looks right. Now, I was really happy with him when I painted him. I've done this for most of the models this month. I've used the Planet Mithril painting guide, so I'm not coming up with all of the recipes myself. I'm just executing them. And he was, in 2023, the last model I painted, he was the best model I think I'd ever painted. Really punched up the highlights. You can see sort of on the ridges of the cloak up here, really punched them up. Smooth blends from lowest base color to highlight, including the mids. So I was really happy with him. I think, of course, he doesn't have the eyebrows. It was the tradition at the time. It was the style at the time. For whatever reason, on the old Warhammer models, we don't paint eyebrows. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you him is because he really is what started the first army project of the year. As much as I asked for help choosing an army, at some stage I will need help deciding on an army project this year. The Fellowship, an all-hero army, will be the first that I complete this year. So let's move him to the side and show you the first model I painted in 2023, which I think you have seen in another video. It's the best model. At the time, it's the best model I'd ever painted. I've had a lot of really positive feedback on this Legolas model on Reddit, of all places Reddit, but we'll get back to Reddit in a minute because they hated some other decisions I made. Really, again, using Planet Mithril, really happy with the transitions from the lowest point of color to the highlights, and his skin. I'm going to try and get some B-roll of this, so this should be inserted here. The skin on his face is the smoothest transition I've ever done on a model. It's just... I'm really, really happy with this Legolas model. Really, really happy with how he came out. And the basing matches. Now, I was less happy. I don't know if you can see that. Less happy with the basing on this model than the other one. I mean, principally, it's the exact same. It was just that I glued him to the top of the gravel instead of graveling around him already being glued on. So it looks like he's almost floating above, which is okay for Legolas because the elves, they're light of foot. If you look at the scene where he's on the snow in the Fellowship of the Ring, he's running on top while everyone's stuck in the snow. It's because they're light of foot. So we'll call it that, but what it really was a mistake. So that's Legolas. We have a couple of Gimlis. Now, why would you paint two of the exact same model, you ask? It's a fantastic question. One that Reddit was not afraid to ask. In fact, they told me, essentially, I was a dickhead for doing this. Now, I'd argue that it didn't actually add too much time to the entire process. they were both painted at the same time. It added some extra time, but not heaps. Some subtle differences. This sculpt is actually bigger and chunkier and less detailed than this sculpt. This sculpt came from the original box. This came from the magazine all those years ago. I suspect that has something to do with it. Only one of these is going to stay on a base. The other is going into a diorama, which I'll show you after this. I'm particularly happy with the facial hair. I don't know if it's coming across quite as well on camera, but we will get some B-roll of this. The eyes on this guy are very, very good. The eyes on this guy are okay. They're white. They look very cartoony. These look very natural. Ultimately, though, these two models are exactly the same. And I'm happy with them. We'll do a big reveal of all the models we've painted so far at the same time at the end. That'll be bloody beautiful. We're now going to change batteries and take a look at the rest of the painted models. Continuing with my fellowship in Moria Army project, next up was Pippin. Now this Pippin is, again, I'm going to keep saying this, but I don't spend, or I haven't for a while, spent a long time. By a long time, these got shorter and shorter as I progressed. I feel like the more I'm painting, I'm able to maintain quality without sacrificing too much time, aka I'm able to do things quicker. The more I'm painting, the more I stay in the zone. And what's exciting to me about this model is the bright colors, the opportunity to do bright blues with really high sky blue, pale highlights that really pack a punch as we spin him around his infamous red cloak, which looks pretty solid to me. Maybe there's a little bit of lack of transition in some areas, but for the most part, I think it reads as cloth really well. It goes from dark to light without being too in your face. One thing I've not been able to nail is painting the hair on Hobbitz's feetses, which is a little annoying, but hey, that's part of it. They're not particularly detailed. And it wasn't until I dug out an older model, and I painted this about 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 2020. I think the plan was to do a Quest of the Ring Bearer campaign, which never happened, but I did previously paint a Pippin. Painted it pretty quickly at the time, but again, probably similar amount of time to this one. And it's not till you sit them side by side that I sort of realize that, hey, practice is helping, and practice does make perfect. Not that I'm perfect at painting, but the side by side on these guys. And I was really happy with this guy. I thought he looked like a really solid model. I thought that he was tabletop quality, and he probably is, but the difference in them is just remarkable to me, if I don't say so myself. The faces, let's see if we can get in there. Look at the faces. The difference in the faces to me is probably the bit that I find most stark, because this one, which I struggle getting just the shade in the eye sockets there, has very little blending. It's basically a base, a wash, one layer of highlight. This has transitions. You can see the jawbones, his cheekbones. You can see his eyes. The hair's layered. The jumps from low to high in terms of the color highlights from base to mid to highlights is drastically different. I toned down the leathers a little bit from the previous version I painted, the old version. It's a bit more subtle here. It doesn't draw the eye away from bits of the model. It's a lot brighter on this older model. And you can obviously see that the cloaks are quite different. One's basically 2 colors. The other is a very slow transition. I'm really excited when I see them side by side, because this isn't a badly painted model, but compared to what I know I can do now, it's garbage. So that's really exciting. And if you want to see photo comparisons, I'll be putting these up. over the next little while on Instagram, Alexi_does. So let's bring in the next model, which logically is Pippin. Oh, I did it again. Logically is Mary, and we'll just from the start, we'll put in the older one next to it. The older one you can see, and it's probably hurt by the fact that I think there's a satin varnish on this, so it looks worse because it's shinier. But look at the face. There's no definition in there. Here, there's highlights through the nose, through the brows. You can see under the eyes, there's shadows. Subtleties through the colours, more natural colours rather than a really harsh yellow. We've got a sort of soft beigey cream almost on this model. The small things like here, yes, I've done a base, a wash, and then a highlight, but here I've taken that highlight on his knuckles. You might not even be able to see it in the video, but his knuckles have points of white on top of them to really highlight them. And honestly, at this angle, and I know it's subtle, this one looks like Mary. He looks like Mary to me. This doesn't. And then we'll just show the back. And you can see I went for a different color scheme now, obviously, but again, it's just more natural, more flowing, more gradual from the base up to the highlights. And I'm just stoked. I'm absolutely stoked with how he turned out. Now, I did actually paint another Mary and Pippin, but that will require a camera change, so we'll get through the rest of what I painted this month, and then I'll show you the final couple of models. Samwise Gamgee was up next, everyone's favourite Samwise, and we'll pull in the older comparison one. And again, these are only sort of 3 years apart. I guess I was probably more getting back into the hobby at this point, and this is now, but definition on the hair, definition on the face, on the cheekbones, on the nose. Again, Planet Mithril's guides are just amazing, and they are really what... Without that, I'm unable to produce this, to be honest, because I don't have the eye for colours. I can give you a rough idea of what colours we need, but this is movie Sam. We'll spin him around. Again, it's just a bit more subtlety through the leathers and through the metalwork. Went for a green cloak here and a blue sleep mat instead of just boring brown and drab grey. This looks, despite having higher, punchier colours, blues and greens and whatnot versus greys and browns, this looks more realistic and in the world to me. And you'd think going for a more drab colour would have that effect. But I think it just speaks to the colour selections that Planet Mithril is able to come away with. But yes, painting again, this Sam was a lot quicker than either of Mary and Pippin. And that's just because when you're in that mode and the more you're painting, the more easily you're able to paint. And finally, for this month, this is actually, he's going to appear in Feb because I painted him at the start of February. But he was started. Oh no, he wasn't started because he was a one session. I sat there in one session and painted this Frodo. And I don't love the Frodo sculpt from this box, but again, this one is messed up. This one is really solid. The face is kind of ugly. I think that's largely because of the eyes. They're a bit too cartoony on this one for me. But again, we're working with something that's the size of my thumb, so cut me some slack, me. But the Frodos. Did this guy in about, I think of actual painting time, it was probably 3 hours, which, well, we've only done 8 models for the month, not including him, 8 models for the month. They're of a quality I've never really painted at before, and they're all hero models, and they're essentially... it's close to a full army. So to do that it's going to end up being 2 months to do that. But I think that's bloody exciting. So this was the final, well, not the final. This is the final one I'm showing you. I painted these guys at the same time that I painted Merry and Pippin. This model this is the metal tree bid, the classic tree bid. I painted that a long time ago. I actually lost these models. And then probably when I was painting these guys in 2020-ish era, I asked on Facebook if anyone had these two models, because I'd lost them, the Merry and the Pippin, and someone sent it to me kindly. I think I paid $5. Like, it was great value, and now they're painted, and now a project that was really complete. And there's obviously stark difference in the quality of painting. These are more smooth blends and natural, and this is more dry brushing and probably more limited palette. But it's a project that's done. It's been sitting there for ages waiting to be done. So I think if you look at Pippin's eyes, they're probably a little bit freaky. Again, very small models. And Merry looks like the Simpsons when they turn into pink freaks, when Homer's imagining them as pink-skinned, blonde-haired, five-fingered freaks. He does look a bit like that, but I think they look really, really good. And a little note, I changed their cloaks. So instead of the red and green cloak that they have in Fellowship, because this is a Two Towers model, I gave them the elven cloaks they get in Lothlorien. So there's a little subtle touch there. It's for me. But I really, really loved painting them up. And again, didn't add much time to the painting of the other ones, because if the paint's on the palette and you know where to put it on the model, yeah, it's pretty easy to add a second one in. So, what's next? It's this. It's the Balin's Tomb display. There's a few other little bits and pieces that I might paint. I've got a golem I'd like to get done to team with the Fellowship theme. I've got a couple of little dwarves that I won through Beard Clipper, who's a really great YouTuber. Go and check him out. But ultimately, it's this. So, what do we need to do to finish this? We need to paint Boromir. We need to paint Gandalf. But that's pretty much it, to be honest. So, I'm also going to replace the top of this. So, it's intended to be used like this. I've never liked that because I didn't want to base my Gimli differently to my other dudes. I like having them all on the same base. They're the same army. So, I've got this old plastic lid for Balin's Tomb. I'm going to sculpt that on there. And then probably this Gimli will be removed from the base, stuck on there. Bada bing, bada boom. He'll stay there. Then I'll have a Gimli for displaying or putting on the table if that ever happens. Aragorn sits in there. Legolas sits in there. This is the first time I will have seen these all on the table at once painted. Well, I guess they're not all painted. Sam goes in the back. Merry sits up here. And Pippin sits up here. So, the goal is to finish this. What do we need to do to finish it? Paint Boromir, paint Gandalf. Add some more gravel texture to this. Sculpt the tomb. Paint it all to match, which honestly, the base painting won't take long. It's the little details that might take a little bit, but by this time next month, I'm hoping we're sitting here looking at this completed army, this completed display, and having ticked off a box that I've wanted to tick off for literally probably 20 years. 20 years? How old am I? 31? It would be close. It would be close. I remember seeing this. This was a mail away in the magazine. I never got it. I bought it secondhand, and the dream was always to paint this up, and I now finally seem to have the ability to paint the models to the level that they're worthy of sitting on a board, and I'm really excited. I'm just so I'm so happy seeing all these things together, and when these two are painted, watch out. Alright, well that is the video, folks. I think it probably went a little long, but I like indulging, talking through the process, and mostly I like looking at the models, and it just had so much fun. So the monthly reviews, the hobby vlogs, they are going to be a little longer, a little bit more self-indulgent, a little bit more conversational, something for you to have on the background while you're painting or gaming or whatever it is. I just want to say thank you for watching. I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for that, if you can't tell it. It's been a long time. I've done a lot of projects that I've been ultimately happy with. Generally, while I'm in the middle of a project, whether it's the Goblin Armies or the Haradrim or the Wargs or whatever, I know that they're going to turn out fine and look okay, but I get really, I guess, bored or disengaged, or when you spend so long on the same thing, it becomes a bit of a blur and you start to doubt yourself. And particularly if you're speed painting or batch painting, and if you're painting 60 dudes at once, even if they look all right when they're all together, individually they probably don't look amazing. These guys being heroes and having only 9 of them in the army has given me a chance to actually flex my muscles a little bit. And this is going to sound so fake. I didn't realize I could actually paint until I started this project. Like, I obviously knew I was good to a standard, and I'm not winning competitions with these, but when I look at them and I pick them up and I pick up the model, it looks like what it looks like in my head when I imagine it. I don't look at it and go, oh, I could have done that better, I could have done that better. If you look at that, I've missed that detail, blah, blah, blah. You can see where I've used speed paint. When I look at this on camera and with my eyes, it looks like how I think it looks, which is a really good feeling because it means I've progressed, and you can clearly see that I've progressed. Anyway, I'm really enjoying hobbying at the moment. I'm really, really enjoying it. And that's why we're doing the video. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're watching this and doing stuff yourself. It doesn't have to be painting models. I hope you're just doing something that you find fun. Try and make the time for it. It can be hard, but far out. Anyway, get out of here.